Look,
Well, Eagles Nation,
look.
it's your host Kevin
Tell me how
Taylor,
you
and I
really
sit
feel.
here before
Tell
you
me how you
presenting
really
top
feel.
5 in
I
the
would
midst
ask
of
you
the
once
Eagles
again.
suffering their first defeat at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. In one of my last videos, I called, I think, a score of 27-21 for the Chiefs, and as it turns out, the Eagles fell 20-27. Tough loss. I'm going to give you my top 5 takeaways. You know how we do this segment. This segment is top 5. Top 5 takeaways from the game. Like I said, I'm your host, Kevin Taylor. Let's get into it.
Top five, top five, top five.
So, first and foremost, what the heck is going on with our running back room? We have LeGarrette Blount, and obviously he's not touching the ball at all. He was not one of the top 3 rushing leaders in the game. He barely got any carries as is. Obviously, just like last year, when you think about the Dallas game, the Eagles relied very heavily on Darren Sproles and a lot of pulls and drags and things like that, making a statement that pretty much he's the only running back they really trust on the team to get it done because he's proven in our system and he can make plays when you need him. The only problem is that when you use Darren Sproles too much in that capacity, he's rendered useless, and because what he's gonna pretty much be used in fact to do. That kind of came out weird, but you guys know what I'm saying. Like when you use Darren Sproles way too much, you tip your hand. Next on the rushing list was Wendell Smallwood, and he went 3 for 4 yards. Like that's terrible. Last week he went 4 for 4. And not the good kind of 4 for 4. And then our rushing leader this week, believe it or not, was Carson Wentz with 4 rushes for 55 yards. And a lot of that, a couple of those came in like garbage time, him taking off, trying to even up the score. But it feels so reminiscent of the Chip Kelly time when we had DeMarco Murray here, and there was and not the fact that, DeMarco Murray wasn't being used right, because honestly, right now, when I look at LeGarrette Blount, we're running him in power. We're trying to give him those looks, and it's just not working. I think it's a combination of both him and our, interior linemen. So we'll see. But moving on. Alshon Jeffrey emerges. So Alshon Jeffrey had himself a nice little game. What were his stats? 7 receptions for 92 yards. Definitely saw Wentz go right at him on the first play of the game off that slant. Really nice connection there. Kind of saw him almost earn his money here today a little bit. Definitely better than last week for sure when he kind of disappeared. And to that note too, he had a big game. Ertz definitely had a big game. The other wide receivers, Mac Hollins got some things going, and Nelson Aguilar actually disappeared until the end of the game when he caught his first pass for a touchdown, which was a clean catch, surprisingly, and he got his feet down 4 times. It wasn't even close. But it just kind of shows you how when you have this many weapons that it's very difficult to spread the ball around, and when one person has a big game, someone else might not. And so pretty much you could definitely see that Nelson Aguilar definitely disappeared in this game almost. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, a game 1 kind of tapers off, but he did catch that. He came up big at the end of the game. For them to kind of set things up. But I was definitely happily surprised with Mac Hollins too. Heard a lot of good things about him, in the preseason and, with his size and speed. So definitely very happy with that there too. Overall, I would give these wide receivers good grades for this game, other than Aguilar, who kind of disappeared. And then finally, when we're talking about the wide receivers, Torrey Smith, completely inconsistent, very inconsistent. 2 big drops. The first one was unexcusable. The ball was on the money. He dropped a touchdown. Okay, that's in that grand scheme of thing, we kicked 3, so that's an extra 4 points. We lost there. And if you think about it, and I hate thinking about it this way, but that 4 points, you get that 4 points, and if Jake Elliott doesn't miss a kick, that's a game tied up at the end of the game right there. That's the Chiefs playing from behind. So when they hand the ball off to us, or when they gave the ball back to us at the end of the game, when it was mid of the like fourth quarter, we gave the ball back off of an interception. We're running the ball there because we're trying to run down the clock because in actuality we're winning by a pretty good margin before those two scores. So with that being said, it's very difficult to quantify really how that would impact the game. But when you look at it from just a base metrics, things like that, like numbers don't lie. And I mentioned Jake Elliott missing that kick. Obviously we're going to have kicking struggles until, Caleb Sturgis comes back, and who's to say they'll end there. Moving on, TZ, it's a thing. Look, TZ, that's the names that end in TZ, so Wentz to Ertz. That connection is real. You guys saw it. Wentz is obviously relying heavily on Ertz. He trusts him. And it's not like he doesn't trust everyone else, but Ertz is definitely going to be an integral part of this offense moving forward and throughout the entire season. I mean, even on, that fluky shot downfield where it was tipped, he trusts Ertz enough to throw the ball up there and let Ertz make a play. So, the fact that Ertz caught it on a tip, that shouldn't be like, oh, well, it's, fluky, whatever, but it should show you more or less that Carson Wentz definitely trusts Zach Ertz, and he's going to try to get him the ball when things are tight and things like that. He's going to look at Ertz. He's going to look, I think at Ertz and Alshon, really. So, definitely very excited about that connection there. For next week's matchup, we'll get into in our later segments. He's going to have his hands, he's going to have his hands full with the Giants safeties over there. But moving on. Where the heck is our front, line, our interior line? Isaac Seumalo just got beat like a drum today, like a drum. His assignment, he just could not. He was whiffing blocks all day. He looked lost out there. It was honestly disappointing to see. Jason Kelce, he does what Jason Kelce does. Not that great a run blocker anymore. He's average. Pass blocking, you can forget about it. The middle of the line is always, going to get blown up if they send that blitz because we don't pick it up at all. And he pulls well. When you ask him to run up field and get in front of a blocker and be a blocker, he does well. He does well. Like we all know what Jason Kelce is, and then Brandon Brooks. I just think it's a deficiency playing alongside of Kelce. So the line as a whole just completely underachieved today. Not to mention Justin Houston destroying our tackles. Just having his way. Completely disappointing. It really feels reminiscent of when we released Evan Mathis, and I think we put in Alan Barber to take his position, and at the time, Alan Barber was not playing that well. And right now, having Seumalo in there, he just looks overmatched right now. And he's going to have his hands full again next week against the Giants. So, this whole thing with Carson Wentz rolling out much more this season, in the first two games in comparison to what he did, it seems like it's going to continue because the middle of the line is just absolutely, it's under fire. And so, look, that's my thoughts on the line. I think I'll address them a little bit later in the week, too. I'll kind of look more in depth on what they're doing. But, the interior of that line has definitely got to step it up. And, somebody's got to answer for it if they don't. But anyway, moving on to the final, we'll end on a positive note. Our front four is fire. Those guys were eating up, and really, they had excellent numbers today. Let's look at some of those, some of those stats. So looking at these stats here, obviously, Michael Kendricks had a sack, and who else? Timmy Jernigan and Brandon Graham both split a sack, and Fletcher Cox had one sack. And Chris Long also got him for a sack. So that's 4 total sacks for the line today. That's a pretty good performance. And there were sacks left on the field too. A couple times. Alex definitely got away from and got out of the pocket, very similar to Wentz. But just overall, the front line definitely held it down today. kind of fell apart a little bit at the end, getting gouged by Kareem Hunt. But up until that point, definitely, made him look like a rookie up until then. Definitely made him look like a good rookie, but I mean, not, freaking an MVP candidate, because right now Kareem Hunt is balling, and I mean, he gouged us. Just a couple thoughts. Definitely was surprised to see Tyreek Hill not burn us deep. I was happy about that. There's obviously some other ripples to this game that need to be getting into, but right now those were my top 5 takeaways from this game. Look, a loss sucks. The Eagles are 1-1, and we're on to beating the New York Giants. Going to leave this one in the past, and hopefully we can fix these mistakes and just move on. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Doug in the future. But those were my top 5 takeaways. I'm your host, Kevin Taylor. This was Birds Fly Talk. Eagles are 1-1 and on to beating the New York Giants. You guys take care. Peace.
They gon' think I want a Grammy. They gon' think I want a Grammy. They gon' think I want a Grammy. They gon' think I want a Grammy.